Hello out there, my name is Andreas and I'm teaching retouch in Photoshop. Cheers. The files for today is located in a folder called T2 Retouch. Inside that folder is 3 folders: Content Retouch, Skin and Hair Retouch, and Surface Blur Retouch. We're gonna go to Skin and Hair Retouch first. This is where we'll be trying to heal some different issues in different pictures. So we'll open up the one called Red Eye first. I'm just gonna click open. If it says that it doesn't have any color profile attached, you'll just click for it to assign the working RGB Adobe RGB 1998. If you don't have it set to being Adobe RGB 1998, set it to assign profile, then set it to be Adobe RGB 1998. Okay, click OK. Now we have made sure that it's using Adobe RGB 1998 inside of Photoshop. If it doesn't give you any warning, then it's okay. Just ignore what I just said. If you want to be sure that your program is using the right working space for colors, just go to Edit, choose Color Settings, set your color settings to be Europe Prepress 3. That way it goes for Adobe RGB 1998 and Coded Fougras 39. I'll just switch off this one and that one, but have this one as when opening for missing profiles. Okay, cool. Okay, so how to remove these red eyes? This typically occurs when you're partying, it's dark and someone shoots a picture and there's flash on the camera and it's pointing directly towards you, that camera. Well, you'll remove it using the red eye tool. That's just simply by holding down your mouse button and selecting red eye tool on the area where it normally says spot healing brush tool. Just simply select red eye tool. In the content menu, you can adjust these values if the result is not good, but 50-50 is in this picture something that will produce a good result. You could always click undo, undo, undo. That's Command Z, like zebra. If you don't get the result that you want. Yeah. Next picture. I'll just not save this. And instead I'll open a few more files. This time I'm gonna open 2 until, yeah, I'll just actually open all of them. And I'll go all the way back to the picture number 2, which is the spot healing pimple. How did I go all the way back to that while so many pictures were open? Simply by clicking this arrow right here, then I get an overview of all pictures open in Photoshop. Okay, so here I want to remove her pimples. How do we do that? We simply zoom in. I'm just using the zoom tool. You don't actually need to use the zoom tool. You could actually just be located on any tool, and you could just hold down Alt or Options and use your mouse wheel to zoom in or out. You could also just simply click Command plus or Command minus or Command 0 if you want to see the entire picture. So there's different ways of doing so. If you hold down Alt and use the mouse wheel, you can simply just select an area where you want to zoom into by just pointing at that area. Then it will zoom into that area when you scroll using your mouse wheel. Okay, select the tool called Spot Healing Brush Tool. It's made for fixing spots, removing spots. So you don't have to buy a lot of cream to put into your face. You can simply use Photoshop to fix whatever blemishes you have in your face. I'm going to right click, select the size that's proper for the pimples. I'm going to compare my size with the pimple, and I'm gonna try to get a bit higher size than the pimples themselves. So a bit bigger than the pimples. This seems the proper size, so that's around 24 pixels. The hardness, if I don't know what I'm doing, I'm just gonna select hardness 50%. That's a typical percentage for working with skin. You could also go all the way down to 0, but in general, if you don't know the value you want to use, just use 50%. And I'll just start clicking in these areas, and you'll notice that it removes the pimples, and you can do this anywhere. I'm scrolling along the face by just holding down my space bar on my computer and simply just removing these areas. Try not to get too close to areas that have big contrast, because then you'll start putting some of her nose into her face where it doesn't belong. So if you go really close to contrasty areas, try reducing the size. That way you can go closer in, and try removing pimples. If you get in too close, it will still produce a bad result. So we're gonna look at that on the next picture. How can we actually go into contrasty areas? But this is how you remove pimples in general using the spot healing brush tool. I'm gonna close this picture down, and I'm gonna just select the second picture in the series, spot healing freckles. And I'm just gonna zoom into, any region just to remove freckles. And there's nothing wrong with freckles, there's nothing wrong with pimples, but it's nice that you know how to remove them. If the editor of the a magazine wants you to remove these, and I don't know what the fuck Photoshop is doing right now. Yes, sorry for my foul language. It's the old pirate hidden inside of me. Yes, so I'll just click to remove these, and this really looks nice. Okay, so there are some freckles down in this contrasty area here, and it might look bad if I try to remove it here, because it will start making the contrast disappear. I'll just try overproducing it, and you'll see what happens if I just over exaggerate. I'm simply exaggerating this area right here, and you see her face is starting to get bashed up. So I'll click undo a few times and tell you how to produce a proper result. I would instead use healing brush tool. I'll hold down Alt. Actually, let me just use the spot healing brush tool in an area right here to remove the freckles right here. You can always sing a little song while doing so, if it cheers you up. Okay, so after cleaning up that area from freckles, I'll just use the healing brush tool and steal from that area. Healing brush tool, how do you use that? The healing brush tool is actually just made by targeting an area and then using that area in a new area. So by holding down Alt, and that's options on a Mac, you click on an area that you want to steal skin from. Let's say that's here. So I click that area while Alt was down or options was down, and then I start painting in the areas, in the regions where I wanted to delete freckles. And if I go too far down, I'm gonna start painting her lips up in her cheek, and that's just gonna look weird. You see right now I'm putting teeth inside of her face, and that simply is bad for her. That's not good. So what I'm gonna do is now and then gonna select new parts of skin to steal from. So I'm gonna hold down Alt to select new skin, and then I'm gonna go up there in this area again, and now and then select new skin again by holding down Alt, clicking a new location, holding down Alt, clicking a new location, and simply just stealing from that location. And that will make a better result in the areas where there's contrast. Okay, so that's a way of removing freckles. You can easily remove all freckles in this girl's face. You don't have to. She looks fine with her freckles, so it's not a contest where you have to do it. Okay, the next picture is 2-3 spot healing, remove text. And in this picture, I'll use the patch tools to simply just remove the text. And how do you use the patch tool? You simply take a sip of your coffee first. Take a heave of your e-cigarette. And clap your own shoulder for being a cool person. Then, after doing so, you drag a selection around an area. And when I say drag, I mean click and drag. You're still holding your mouse button. There's no pressure to it, but it's being held down, this mouse button. And then when you go all the way back to the original part where you started, you simply release the mouse button. That creates a selection. This selection, you will go inside that selection, click and drag that selection to some other part of skin, close to that area so the skin color is almost the same, and release. That will remove whatever was in that area before and simply make it that skin tone that I moved it to. But it will only do so if source is what you selected up in the content menu. Don't have it switched to content aware, have it switched to normal, and you will need it to be set to source. Don't have it set to transparent, because then it will only become 50% of the effect. So I'm gonna hold my mouse button down again, circle around this area, release my mouse button, and boom, there we go. I'll click and drag it down to a new location. Actually, one thing I didn't say was when you need the selection gone, you simply click once outside it. That removes the selection. Another way of removing the selection is actually to go up into select, deselect, and the keyboard shortcut for that is Command D or Control D if you're on a PC, and this will simply deselect. So I'll just continue doing this. Actually, I think I can manage to do it with 2 letters, and I'm taking small chunks at a time because that makes a more realistic result. And I'm all for the great results, you know. That's the type of guy I am. Okay, so we fixed it. Let's party. Moving on. The next picture is this guy right here. Okay, so there are several ways to work with this guy. I would normally use patch tool on this guy, or I would use healing brush tool, or I would try using spot healing brush tool. We can just see what spot healing brush tool does to this guy by just clicking and dragging along the lines right here using the spot healing brush tool. I don't know why Photoshop is being an asshole right now. Just 1 second, I'll zoom in, and you see it just removed that entire wrinkle right there. And I'll just try doing the same right here, boom, and you know, it's going okay. I can feel a nice sensation inside of me. Yeah. And you see how fast we actually managed to remove the wrinkles on this guy's face. And so this would probably be the fastest way of doing it. And the result is quite decent. Okay, so If you like that result, you'll stick with that result. If you think this is a bit too young of a look, you could go to History Brush tool. It is able to go all the way back of how many actions you've done inside of your picture. Notice if you close this picture and open it again, the history will be gone. So the history brush will not work because there will be no history when you open the picture once again. But it will work right now. It will be able to go all the way back to the original, which looked like this. Okay, so the history brush tool, if I wanted to remove 50% of the changes, I'll set it to an opacity of 50%. And I'll simply choose a size, which is approximately the size of his face. I set mine to 2400 pixels. And then I simply just click once, making his wrinkles appear a bit more, so it looks like there is some kind of elderly sense or feeling or vibe to this picture. And I can click once more if I want it to be a bit more apparent. Let's compare that to the original, and we'll see this is before, this is after. I'm quite sure this man would be happy with the after result if it was for a magazine cover where he's on the front page. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. Another way, and a more safe way of working actually, is I'll just go all the way back in history to the original. Another more safer way of working is by actually making a copy of the original, duplicating that layer. That's right clicking, duplicate layer, then clicking OK, then making whatever changes. This time, instead of using the spot healing brush tool, I'm going to use the patch tool. You could use the healing brush tool if you want, but on this particular picture it's going to be difficult because you need to select skin from some region where there's no wrinkles, but there is wrinkles everywhere in this picture. So it's going to be tough, so I'm going to select the patch tool instead, and you could simply just choose an area, move it to a new area where there's no wrinkles or less wrinkles, and simply just do like this. This is not as fast as using the spot healing brush tool, and it's perhaps not as fun either, but it does produce some results, and that's what we're all about. Using the patch tool in this case will perhaps produce some kind of a bit like scars in the flesh, perhaps. But you're not really gonna notice that when I do something in a second. So you could just continue doing this like you did when removing the text from the picture with the red eyes. And I could do it down here as well. Okay, so the cool thing about actually having this done on a copy is that you have not done anything different to the original. The original is still located down here in layers, so you're doing all these changes to a copy. Now, if I want my copy to blend with the original, so it looks a bit more like he actually has wrinkles because that's his age, you can simply just lower the opacity down here. So let's say 50% or something different. So you can just change it to a suitable opacity until you find what simply looks best for him. And I think this looks realistic. I set mine to 45% opacity. Let's compare it to the original. Instead of going back in history, I could actually also just compare it to the original, because the original is down here in layers. So I'll just go out of my history panel where I could find the original by just scrolling all the way up, but I can also find the original just down here. And I'll just switch off the visibility. I'll toggle off the visibility down here, by clicking on the eye next to background copy. And here we see this is before, and I'll click the eye again. This is after. What do you think? Do you like it? Next, I'm just going to close this picture. And the next picture is actually just one way you can test what I just showed you with that cowboy. Here is a picture where we have stretch marks. You could use patch tool on this one, that will work fine. Move the skin to new locations. But this picture is also to show you a new way of removing these these stretch marks, and there's nothing wrong with stretch marks. Nothing at all. It's just a beautiful occurrence in life that someone produces a child and is marked with the signs on her body. Okay, super, back to Photoshop. So I'll click delete when I have the selection that I made using the patch tool. When I click delete, a dialog box appears. It will say fill, and down here contents, you'll choose content aware, and that's simply enough. I'll click OK, and it will remove a huge part of the stretch mark, and I can do the same again. Delete, enter, delete, enter, delete, enter, and so on. So the difference, Photoshop, I really love the new version of Photoshop. It's really fucking up a lot. So I'll just select, delete, and so on. Okay, so when I get close to this area right here, I need to watch out because it may take some of the clothes up into the skin. So I'll just not get too close to the cloth. Okay, so when I get all the way down here, actually, if you want to see what could happen if I go too close to this cloth right here, let's just see what happens if I do like this. Click delete, enter. And okay, so this time I was lucky, but sometimes, let's just try it again. Delete, enter. You'll see that the clothes actually goes into the skin. So to avoid stuff like that, I'll just deselect, and you might think that because you heard before that healing brush tool is good to working in areas where there's contrast, you might think that that will work. It won't. I'll just show you what happens. I'm choosing skin from here, and I'm gonna try putting it down here, and it's just gonna paint close in that area. That's because it's gonna try blending some of this right here into the skin, and it won't produce a good result. So here what we'll do, because the contrast is of another color, we'll use clone stamp tool. The clone stamp tool. And what does clone stamp tool? It doesn't just blend, it actually copies. No blending, just pure copy. So if I want it to be skin exactly down here, I'll just choose skin from up here and copy it down to here. So it's not blending, it's copying. So that means I'm not gonna select skin from over here to put down here, because that will produce dark skin. And this is a light skin area, so I'm gonna select light skin and put in this area right here. I'm gonna set my opacity to not 100%, because I need it to be looking as if it's blending a bit. So I'm just gonna reduce the opacity to, I don't know, 80%, 60%. Hold down Alt, select an area, that's options, and just look if that flesh color is similar to the skin color down here. And it seems so, so I'm just going to start coloring. If it produces a bad result, perhaps you should right-click, check your hardness value. That needs to be relatively high because you're going against a hard edge. The clothes is considered a hard edge. It's not fluffy, it's not feathery, it's a hard edge. If you put it to a very low hardness, you'll notice what happens is that you start painting skin color over the clothes, which looks kind of weird. Unless you're that type of person. Okay, so I'll set the hardness to. It's nice when you can laugh at your own bad jokes, you know. Okay, Alt click to steal skin from somewhere, then start coloring, and I'll just, try to produce the result that I like, and you can always undo if you do something you don't like. And now I'm using time in this area. It doesn't matter, you can always patch that area. The only thing important now is this edge right here. To just make sure the edge becomes nice. And I'll just try doing the same in this region right here. This region right here is a region for me. Sorry about the song lesson. Okay, so now I just fixed some of that, and I'll just use the patch tool, for example, or it could also just be delete, enter, and I'll just make sure that these skin areas down here that looks weird are just set to look like they're supposed to. Okay, so that's a way of fixing stretch marks and also contrast the areas at the edge of skin and clothes. And there is one more picture you can try doing that on right here. The next picture I'll choose is this one. You can use patch tool to remove unwanted hair right here. If you think that's in the way, you can just remove it. Sometimes if it doesn't look right at the first try, you can always just go through that area again, try it once more, and then often on the second time it will look better. The problem right here is actually not the hair up there, but it's actually the hair inside his nose. This is an unwanted problem that a lot of people share. Hair growing out the nose. If you forget to pluck that and you have a model session day, then the 100 picture shot of you will have that nose hair, and that's just going to be annoying for the Photoshop or afterwards to have to remove it all. So just remember, if you're a model, always pluck your hair from your nose. Okay, so if the Photoshop guy has to do so, removing the hair from the nose, the proper tool to do so would be perhaps patch tool to remove those that are in the fleshy areas, not all the way in the contrasty areas, but in the areas that have a lot of neutrals. You can remove some of the hair sticking out here. Yeah, that's nice. You get most of it removed. Then when you go closer in, you could use the clones tool to simply just choose a smaller brush, option click somewhere that's darker, then start removing hair right here. I'm clicking options a lot of times just to simply remove this right here. In general, I think there are some purplish pixels right here. That's some chromatic aberration. That's what that's called when you have weird colors going into areas where they're not supposed to be. I could also just remove that by not cloning, but actually coloring darker. To color dark, you can choose Burn tool, which is located beneath Dodge tool. That looks like some candy that you're supposed to eat. Dodge tool. Burn tool darkens, Dodge tool lightens, sponge tool desaturate, that means makes black and white. Or does the opposite, gives everything more color if it's set to saturate instead of desaturating. But burn tool, I'll use that right now to simply darken things up. I'll set it to be range shadows because this is dark areas and I only want to work with the dark areas. The exposure, set that to 5%, don't have it to 100%. Nobody ever uses 100% with Dodge tool or burn tool. Normally 5% is the value you would use, and you'll just go through that area. You have your mouse button held down, opposed to when using your brush where you're clicking, your regular paintbrush. When using Dodge tool, burn tool, you simply just click once, have your mouse held down, and then you just go up, down, up, down, up, down, and so on. And that makes the area darker. So that's how to remove nose hair, and now it looks much better and we don't have to be disappointed in the model that there's hair sticking out the nose. Yeah. And the next lesson will be surface blur retouch, which you use for making doll face retouch.